right. Looks like our room is full. This is exciting. Had to move a couple times due to internet connection, but that's okay. I'm just really happy that we are still able to go ahead with today. Is everybody back in the room, Stephen?
Everybody is in the room. The floor is yours.
Wonderful. Excellent. Well, welcome everyone. Good morning. My name is Cindy Voss and I'm the CEO of the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce. And it is great to have everybody here this morning. We had a lot of fun in our VIP room. We called it the VIP room. And it was just great to be able to connect in a way that Zoom doesn't allow us to connect sometimes. I'm not going to go on forever because there's so many important people that we want to hear from today. There's a couple of things I did want to say though. I'm excited because I loved hearing the music when we came in, and to have Don't Stop Believing. It was an interesting rendition, but it was fantastic to have going. Just in the background, because I love music. It's a part of me, and it's one of those things that makes me very happy. You know, there's tons of statistics we could throw at you first thing in the morning about our mental health, but I'm going to leave it at Don't Stop Believing. And I'm hoping today is going to give us that energy we need to get through and learn a lot of fun things today. I'm going to introduce Deborah Gordon. She is with Bayshore, and Bayshore is our major sponsor for this event. This is an annual chamber event, and we weren't sure how we were going to be able to move ahead with it this year. So we were so enthusiastic when Deborah said that she would step up and help us with this. And so I'm going to let her take the floor over, introduce Bayshore, talk about them a little bit, and then set us off with our first key speaker, Tony. So if you wouldn't mind taking the floor, there you go. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Cindy. Yeah, thank you for having me, everyone. Very excited to be here today. This is a conversation that's really close to my heart personally, and certainly something that touches our entire team at Bayshore. Bayshore, for anyone who may not know, we provide home health services from children all the way to seniors. And right now and every day, we support the mental health of other people, and so do our teams. So right from the top of our company all the way to the most important people that do the work in our company out in the communities, mental health is a different conversation. And I was really excited. I'm new to the Lethbridge area, very excited to connect with the chamber and have the opportunity to support this. And most of all, be here to learn some strategies and hopefully walk away with some positive approaches to bringing back the conversation. One thing I will say that's really exciting and positive is that this time in all of our lives has really brought mental health to the forefront and made it an open conversation. And I'm really grateful for that personally. Our teams are out supporting seniors, being companions, you know, doing things that are they're supporting people that can't see their families. It's very important that our teams are there to support. We've just signed a partnership with the Red Cross with no cost to our staff to teach everyone about psychological first aid. So that's really proud of that. Aside from that, we are huge supporters of the chamber. Everybody in Lethbridge has been extremely welcoming to me. Many groups, I see lots of familiar faces out there, so thank you. And in the spirit of what Cindy was saying, I don't want to take up too much because there's some amazing speakers. And in our breakout room, we were actually talking, and I was speaking as the yoga teacher in me, which goes with today. And I mentioned that something we say in yoga is your biography becomes your biology. So the story you tell yourself, all of the things that make you up, they get right into your body. So I'm excited to listen to some professionals and some very experienced people speak about how we can tell ourselves a really good story and tell our teams a good story to bring some positivity. So with that, I'd like to introduce the first speaker, Tony Rubleski. Tony is the president of Mind Capture Group. He's an author, he's a motivational speaker. He has a new book that I know is late, but we are going to get some books from him. It's his 7th book, I believe. It's called Positive Disruption, The Power of a Quote and Question to Upshift Your Life. So thank you for that. He's been featured in many media outlets, and in addition, he's served as a faculty member with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and CEO for Space International. So Tony, welcome. I'm very excited to hear you speak, and please take over. Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you so much. And Dominique, I know, on the team, and Cindy, and you as the sponsors, I want to thank you for having me here. And more importantly, as we start, we're going to pull up some slides here to kind of make this a little bit more entertaining and kind of get out of the Zoom mania we're in. Is first and foremost, I love the fact you're doing this conference. We talked about it in the sort of the pre-meet and greet rooms before we started today. But everyone that's joining us, as indicated, you're going to get a copy of the book Positive Disruption that this entire presentation or keynote is based upon. So they're en route right now. I think they're going to get to Lethbridge in the next day or two. So stay tuned on that. So Cindy and the board and all the sponsors, thank you for allowing everyone that's on this call to get a signed copy of the book. So let's dive right in. As this first slide indicates, we're going to talk about positive disruption, and welcome, you survived 2020. And as the slide comes up here, we all know that familiar face for the most part, Harrison Ford from the movies Raiders of the Lost Ark. And here in the States, I'm at the border, so I'm sort of like your Canadian cousin, if you want to say that. I'm based in Michigan. And my folks in Ontario call us the brothers and sisters to the west. So we have a lot of the same challenges you're going through here in the States. And I look at the fact that we made it through 2020. It was not easy. Everyone globally was impacted. The elephant in the room, the C word I call it, changed all of our lives. And we're still trying to process those changes. So kind of how I train and teach around the world is from an open-minded perspective. I'm going to throw a lot at you in a short period of time to add massive value. And you're all very much into this topic. So here's sort of some ground rules I ask that we look at deeply. First and foremost, pick and choose out of the information that I'm going to share what's relevant for you. And also maybe listen from a second perspective of what's going to help your team. So I want you to be the conduit to take the positive disruption message out there and share it throughout the province, and particularly in Lethbridge. So that being said, congratulations, you are here. Let's continue on. Sort of behind the formal bio is, who is this guy? Who is Tony Rubleski, and why should I care? I think that time and attention, those are the two most valuable things that we have right now. Obviously, health is a major issue, but time and attention in the world of Zoom is very, very challenging to get and keep. So there's a picture there, because to me, a picture tells 1,000 words. And when I teach, I like to use stories, pictures, and also some different points of instruction. But this was a photo that was taken at an event last fall that I did here in the US. I'm in the center, and there's a great group around me. That's my team, Kelsey and Wendy, and some other speakers and CEOs in the photo. Why I wanted to start with this, besides the Indiana Jones references, I love people. When Cindy reached out to me a couple months ago, we actually shuffled around another group in the US that wanted me at the same exact time to speak. They were gracious to allow me to work with your team and Cindy to do this session this morning. So I have to thank them as well for being very considerate in the state of Montana to let me be here this morning for this Mental Health Awareness Day. I love people. And I think what you'll quickly see here as we dive into the session this morning is that borders don't mean much to me. I know that may sound a little trivial, but people are people. And I've been blessed to teach the last 17 years full-time around the world, many times face-to-face. We all want the same things. We want a good quality of life. We want good things for our families, our legacies. We want to give back. We want to build our businesses, build our communities and our nonprofits. So that to me is the gist or the flow of how I want to teach this morning, anywhere I'm teaching for that matter. Continuing, a bonus confession here. I'm a huge hockey geek. So if I were born in Canada, I would have maybe attempted to play hockey, but I never played hockey. But I went to a college here in Michigan called Western Michigan, where a lot of players come in from Canada. I'm a huge college hockey fan. Go Detroit Red Wings. So if you're a Calgary, Flames fan, or you're an Edmonton Oilers fan, I still appreciate you. Okay. And the photo that I want to show you was taken about a week and a half ago. I took a vacation or a holiday down to San Diego and Las Vegas. And the gentleman in the photo there, his name is Lon Friend, is holding, talk about perfect timing, an actual LA Kings hockey stick that Wayne Gretzky used, the great one, yes. And he brought it to dinner because he was trying to sell it. I said, well, Lon, I'm not in the market to buy it right now, but can you still bring it? So it was like show and tell, holding Wayne Gretzky's LA King game used hockey stick. So I thought how perfect that we're teaching here in the Alberta province today, that I got to hold the great one's hockey stick. So a little bit of random trivia, but I could not escape my overflowing passion for hockey. And I cannot wait to get to live games again, like many of you, I'm sure. All right, let's set the stage and shift gears. I want to go back to some core universal principles to set the stage for this new year 2021 and beyond. Albert Einstein, the great thinker, said, the definition of genius is taking the complex and making it simple. The training I'm going to share this morning as we kick off the conference here virtually, some of it is very simple. A lot of this I share with groups is about reminding them of things that they're doing well, number one. And number two, things that they may have forgotten that can improve their overall positivity and, more importantly, their mental well-being. So again, I teach from a lighthearted perspective, but not lightheaded, and I have Albert Einstein to back me up. Continuing. So the first area or strategy to move forward into 2021 and beyond is I want to talk about tuning up your mindset. To me, the mindset is the foundational piece of how you have either success or challenge. And when I'm teaching in my other books and at live presentations the last 16, 17 years, I spend a lot of time talking about mindset. So long before we had COVID-19 last year really jump out and impact the world, I was talking about mindset for a long time, because anyone that's successful in the arts, the nonprofit world, the private sector, business arena, typically has to have the right mindset. So let's dive in with another famous person in history. Tony Robbins taught me years ago, the other Tony R, as I call him, that success leaves clues. Winston Churchill, the late Prime Minister of the UK. He was Prime Minister during World War II, and he has a great quote here that I'll read. He said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." When everything broke about a year ago, we're coming up on 1 year since COVID-19 became known around the world, I went back to the history shelves. I love to study the historical great leaders. Those are from business, some are in the nonprofit space. But Churchill, to me, what stuck out is I knew who he was. But he led Germany. If you do some backtracking here in time to World War II era, he basically got Britain to believe again. There was a point in time when the Germans were literally firebombing London constantly. The city was in flames. And to give you some perspective or draw an analogy, that was really life and death. Very, very tough situation. He would go on the radio waves, because that was obviously pre-internet, and he would motivate the British people to not quit, to single-handedly, I believe, if you look back at history, my strong opinion here is he kept the UK and the British people in the game. Had the UK fallen to the Germans, the Nazi regime, who knows how World War II would have ended. So I like to draw from the great trailblazers throughout history to give us perspective of the challenges we're going through right now. To me, Churchill single-handedly told Adolf Hitler, screw off, okay? We're not quitting. We will never surrender. If you go on YouTube or Spotify and you listen to some of his speeches, they're incredible. So I like to dig back to set also the stage for today and say, what do we as a human civilization do during other times of struggle, challenge, and adversity? Continuing on here. Something that I believe, I work with my clients and other groups, I share and I practice every day, is that gratitude is a daily programmed attitude. So if you look at the image as it comes up, if you schedule a plan, you schedule your day in advance, you're planning to win. So to me, how that ties together, the connection point is this. How are you programming your mental software each day? There's the question for everyone listening. And again, I encourage you to have a pen and paper with you because I cover a lot of ground and I like to play off of the content that's on the slides. But so many of us take the morning for granted to start the day and we just kind of go through our routines. We're very habitual. What I really want to encourage or challenge each of you to do today, to get one thing from me, is to start that day strong by programming it. I do written gratitude journals every day. If you were to come into my office, I sit down in my chair, I pull out a little blue book. It says yes on the front. I open it up and I write down what I'm grateful for each morning. It's a daily habit. Why I do that is for several reasons, which I'll talk about here a little bit later in the training, but I don't leave how I start the day to chance. And I'm going to give you several strategies. Again, you pick and choose this morning what are relevant for you or your team that give you a greater chance of programming your mind for greater success. All right, so continuing on here. This next slide is simple, but it's sometimes difficult. I believe you never know who needs you. Good energy is contagious. A second challenge I want to issue to every one of you, not only for being here, is to take the messages that you're going to hear today from me, the other presenters. This is a great group that Cindy and the team have assembled, and take one or two ideas from each of us and go out and share it. Again, I want you to be the conduit. I want you to hand the baton off if you're going to give up your valuable time and attention today, to take some of these ideas, some ahas that you get, and go out and share it within the Lethbridge community. People are walking around right now, for the most part, very scared. It's obvious. I will not try to sugarcoat reality. I will say, though, that you have a direct influence positively, moderately, or even negatively on how you impact other people, how you engage or you move out there. I know it's tricky right now. Michigan, for example, we are locked down and under quarantine pretty heavy, similar to Alberta. Our restaurants, for example, just opened a couple weeks ago, and they're only at 25% capacity. So many of us here in Michigan, to draw a parallel, are going through a lot of the psychological challenges that you are seeing up in Alberta. So again, we may be separated, for example, by a border or by a title, but we're all going through the human condition of COVID and quarantine very similarly. Next slide here. This is the whole conference to me. Your attitude is everything. Now, there is some history here behind the photo. I'm going to read the t-shirt. Stay with me, and maybe you'll grab a lesson or two. This photo was taken about 8 years ago down in Spokane, Washington at a festival called Arborcrest. It was on a Sunday night in August. You can tell by the weather in the photo. And the guy that walked up to me, he's now still a Facebook friend, walked up and I took a photo. And this was the actual t-shirt he had on. It said, "Fat people are hard to kidnap." And I don't know about you, but I was shocked. I took a photo. He gave me permission to use it. And I just started laughing. Not at him, but what I loved was the brutal honesty. Now, if you can't tell by looking at the image there, and particularly the t-shirt, this guy has no reservation about telling you who he is. Everyone talks about authenticity in marketing. This guy beat them to that term. I will tell you later that night, I did get a chance to talk to him a little bit. I actually danced with him. Again, it was an outdoor celebration. And here's what, again, I also loved about this. The guy just had a spirit of fun, adventure. He was there to have a good time. And I want to remind everyone, including myself, sometimes we forget that we as humans love to play. We love to laugh. We like to get out and be social creatures. Strong opinion moment. And again, take what you will from the session. I believe that what we're seeing is that we are built for social connection, not distance. So as this thing starts to clear, again, I'm not with the US Health Department. I'm not advocating, I'm an expert on COVID, but I think we're finding this grand experiment of isolation is going to change us in many ways, and that we are built for social connection, okay? So looking at this slide, I train motivation, as you can tell already, a little differently, from a more real level that, hey, we all go through challenges and we're all very uniquely different. Continuing onward, Great quote here from the legendary late Charles Dickens. He said, "There is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor." The quickest way, I believe, there are two ways to connect with any human on the planet is through music and laughter. Now, up in Canada, you would add a third one, hockey. We already covered that. But seriously, people are drawn to that energy. If you went back a couple slides ago, that yellow slide, people want to be around people that are fun, that are positive. I don't know how many of you have Zoom meetings. Wait a minute, we all have Zoom meetings. But sometimes you have people on Zoom meetings that are just very negative. They're very grumpy. They're very down. I don't know about you, but sometimes I mute them. Again, what happens in Alberta stays in Alberta. But kidding aside, we like to be around people that are going and looking forward, that make us smile, that make us laugh. And I know right now here in the Midwest, in Michigan, in the States, it can be very dark. The weather is, very much dark and gray. We have a lot of snow. I know you can relate to this. But people are looking around saying, wow, who's different? Who's unique? Who has that good energy? Continuing. This is one of the quotes that's in the book that you'll be getting from Positive Disruption. And it's one of my own, and I believe this because I see it especially in social media. The critic revels and enjoys spending time picking apart your dream versus working on their own. We call them trolls. We call them haters. We call them the negative people. Not that we say that they're bad, there's a difference there. However, what I want you to think is when you leave this session today, all the great presentations you're going to hear, the ideas you're going to gather that are going to spark as you listen in and engage, when you go out and share this, be prepared. Some people are going to look at you like you're crazy. They might say, well, that's the way we've always done it in Lethbridge. Haven't you heard what's going on with the news? Haven't you heard about all the jobs? Haven't you heard about COVID-19? And here's where the rubber's going to hit the road for every one of us listening and on these calls and on these sessions today is, are you going to push forward with positivity? Online, offline, on a Zoom call, maybe it's at a gathering. Be prepared that some people are not going to understand why you are looking forward, why you are happy, why you are not being always scared, because most media globally right now, this is going to sound stereotypical, but I see this, is designed to scare you. It's designed to keep you where you don't feel like making a move, for example, that you don't want to rock the boat. Again, I thank you for bringing me on. I'm maybe not the safest speaker or presenter because I look at the world from optimism, not fear. That is exactly the contrary to what most media outlets, online and offline, are portraying to us right now. All right, so a few go-tos as we look ahead to the next slide to help you tune up your mindset. I want to give you what I use each day and what I also share with my top clients. The first one that drops in, I mentioned it earlier and I alluded to it, is I handwrite my gratitude list each day. Some of you are into affirmations, whatever you can use. I also believe that you also write down what I call I am statements. And I am is another form of affirmation where you declare what you are seeking. If you look at, as we back up here, I am statements, one of the greatest examples comes from sports. In human history, the last 50 years, I believe, is Muhammad Ali, the great boxer, heavyweight champion, the late great Muhammad Ali. Long before he became heavyweight champion, he was declaring on all the media that I am the greatest. He kept saying it constantly here in the US and his Olympics back in the 60s. He said, I am the greatest. Now, that may sound cocky, but what he was doing, he was publicly declaring to you that he was and I am the greatest boxer of all time. So that to me is another way, if you draw from the world of sports, that some people tune up their mindset. In addition, as you see there, I'm a big believer that you read. You learn something new each day. Maybe it's podcasts. They're very interchangeable, but what are you doing to tune up your mindset and your skill set each day? Continuing, a big believer about meditation, prayer. Again, my lane is not to talk heavily about religion or politics. I do believe that spirituality is a good thing for human society. It's not a bad thing. And one of the quotes that you'll be hearing and seeing in the new book you'll be getting is I talk about going inward to get ideas and to self-reflect, not always looking around externally. So again, get a little selfish here and listen to your intuition again. We tend to forget that we have a lot of great ideas internally. In addition, some other tips here, you pick and choose. I know I don't look at social media right away when I get up for the most part. Some days I break that rule because social media is very addictive. Let's be honest here. However, when you start that morning, what you put in your mind, if you grab your phone right away and you start checking your email, you go on Facebook or TikTok or Instagram, you are sometimes put into a very reactive state where you're looking at things that are coming at you versus starting the day with a plan, which I've talked about earlier, and programming your mind or your mental software the direction you want to start the day. In addition, big believer that we have so much great content or specific information of value, that's what I like to call it, available to us for free, especially during lockdown and quarantine. What a blessing to have Wi-Fi and access to YouTube and the internet, okay? In addition, time shifting to me when you're out walking or driving, if you're doing different things, utilize that time shifting capability of the online internet and information we have available. In addition, music. I mentioned it earlier. It's a great uniter of the human race along with laughter. But music to me is also a great pattern interrupt, along with physical health. If you're walking, go to the gym. If you don't have a gym, go outside, do yoga. You can also do these things at your home. I know for the first few months of quarantine here last year, we couldn't go to a health club. So we learned to improvise how you made a health club at home. Okay, or you'd walk around the block, get out and get fresh air. And obviously laughter. I'm a big advocate, lots of it every day if you can, because laughter changes your energy, it's known, and it brings a very positive state of mind. Continuing. Some other thoughts here. You cannot make everyone happy. Don't try to. And as the next image comes up here, this is a Post-it note. And I think the quote comes from Brene Brown. Don't exactly, I saw it this morning, ironically, pop up with her credit here, but this Post-it note to me, it's got some symbolism going on. It says, don't try to win over the haters. You are not the jackass whisperer. Okay. Now, I'm going to get probably one or two comments that Tony used some language. If I could see all of you by show of hands, I'm sure everyone's over 18 years old. And if you don't swear out loud, I'm sure you swear privately. So I hope we've got equal opportunity here with this quote. Here's what I love about this message. In the age of social media, when you're out engaging people on a Zoom call, or when we start to go back to getting out physically meeting people again, they're not always going to agree with you, and that's good. It's called freedom of speech. However, what we tend to do, and here's the aha, is we focus on the one negative comment or the one negative email that we get. From out of 50, for example, positive comments, you might get one negative thing. What do we typically do? We focus on the one person that doesn't like us, that maybe is a direct competitor, that is what I call a hater. And I don't mean like they hate us deeply. They disagree with us. I'd like everyone to note this. Here's what I'd love to see come out of the next few months at a larger level. We realize that we all have different opinions, and it's okay to disagree with each other. I know down here in the States, I'm not as familiar with what's going on in Canadian politics, but our politics is very divisive. And it's almost like we can't agree to disagree with harmony. We always have to get very polarizing. What I really want to encourage you throughout the sessions today is to respect and listen with an open mind, and also feel comfortable and safe to express your own opinions, because you're not going to make everybody happy. All right, continuing. This next slide, there's two images here. And I'll start out with the quote from Les Brown. He's one of arguably the greatest motivational speakers of the modern era. If you go on YouTube videos, I'm a big fan, obviously, of the industry. He's one of my peers. Many of the videos and audio clips will have Les Brown. You'll hear his voice. But the picture on the left was taken back in 2007 and is at the Orlando Regional Chamber of Commerce. So talk about, here we are with the Lethbridge Chamber. This was one of your other chambers here in the States. The photo on the left is a picture of Les Brown and three other people in the photo, including me. Now, that photo to me is a symbol that if you believe strong enough, you get around the right people and you do good work, magical things can happen. Now, Les Brown at the top of that slide is famous for a speech where he says, you got to be hungry. And again, some homework I put at the bottom here under the photos is, after today, go and look at his YouTube clip titled, It's Not Over Until I Win. And I think Cindy and Dominica, you're going to share these slides with everybody. So if I'm going pretty quick here, you'll have access to go back to these slides as a valuable resource and also to share with your team, okay? I like to provide the slides for reinforcement in post-event learning. But I remember hearing Les Brown speak about a year and a half before that photo on the left in front of 3,000 people. And I sat in the back of the room with a full auditorium and said, someday I want to share the stage with that man because he's an icon. I believe in his message and he's amazing. Fast forward to the photo on the left. That was a year and a half later where I had to go on after Les Brown. So the Orlando Chamber, Vilma Quintana in the center of that photo, booked me to speak for their chamber event. Little did I know they would add Les Brown on a couple months later. So that was the first of what I call 3 God winks or miracles where I got a chance to speak with Les Brown. The photo on the right, us shaking hands, was taken a few years later in Las Vegas. I was named faculty member through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and also at CEO Space. That's Les and I talking before we went up and shared ideas with the students there as faculty. In addition, I had another opportunity, and I'm still sometimes pinch myself to speak with him in Florida again a couple years later. Here's the bigger point. Right now, we're all sort of trying to process what's going to happen next. What I really want to encourage everyone, and obviously as I teach this, it helps to inspire me more, is to not lose our desire to move forward. Humans to me are built for progress. We love to learn and expand and grow. That is universal in any country in the world. The challenge right now is there's a lot of conflicting information, or we're physically restrained because we can't move around as much with physical freedom. So I want you to be the champions out of this mental health awareness data, go out and present a different image, present a different message of positive disruption. Continuing, second strategy here. I'm a big believer in habit force to build a stronger version of you. A healthier you expands like a ripple effect to positively disrupt those around you, okay? I live near Lake Michigan here, where I'm located at. If you throw a stone out in the lake, there's a ripple effect. I know you can probably visualize this. It's tricky when we're not face to face, but you giving up your valuable time, your attention, gathering new ideas today from everyone, including the panelists, is going to help you massively to encourage others to go out and replicate, to keep the ball moving forward. So to me, it starts with habits as well, besides the mindset. Continuing, I do a lot of social media on Facebook and Instagram in particular with our company. And this slide that I put up last year got the highest amount of shares and likes. And it's pretty straightforward, pretty black and white, no pun intended. But take a look at that for a second. What we are seeing right now, almost a year after COVID-19 arrived on the scene globally in March of 2020, is we are seeing some people really rise and shine to the occasion. It's very easy to talk about what leaders are not. Again, I'm not going to talk about politics or religion heavily. It's not my lane. They do blend in, though. They do impact us. So you do pick and choose. But right now is an opportunity for leaders to be born, for leaders that have been maybe in the shadows, afraid to try new ideas, to speak their truth, to get out there and lead people. The market space, many communities are begging for great leaders. That's why I've talked about other speakers such as Les Brown, Winston Churchill, Albert Einstein. I mentioned the great one, Wayne Gretzky, and drew from the world of sports, Muhammad Ali, the great heavyweight former boxing champion of the world, is whether you like them or not, you pick and choose, they lead, they influence millions of people, and for the most part in a positive direction. That's what it's all about. Continuing, a core belief, I'm going to repeat it. Repetition makes the master. I said it earlier, gratitude is a daily programmed attitude. I study and work with and teach with many of the great leaders in personal development, and they will all come back and say this, almost 100%. It is almost impossible to be angry or upset when you have an attitude of gratitude, especially if you write down what you're grateful for. It's a great pattern interrupt. That's why I do it every day, is it helps remind me if I have a tough day in front of me to not give up, to not bring a grumpy attitude, okay? This training, for example, is a big deal. This entire mental health awareness day is a big deal. To open up a session like this, I can't have a bad day. You don't care if you're listening to me up in Alberta, if I had something go wrong this morning. You're saying, look, make this session about me, Tony. Bring your A+ game. I don't pack it in or mail it in and just take a session like this for granted. I get fired up thinking about this stuff. Also, it starts with an attitude that, hey, you invited me to be here today. It's an honor to speak. This is the debut of Positive Disruption in the new book in Canada today. So above and beyond it, I'm beyond grateful I get a chance to share ideas with you. Even though we're at a distance, we're connected via Zoom. All right, so let's talk about habit force in particular on the next slide. 2 questions to think about. What new habits are you adding in that help you? And what are some old habits that you might want to consider removing or pulling away in your life? There are 3 areas. Again, in respect to time, I'm going to do a little bit of a surface versus a deep dive explanation of some ideas. Body, mind, and spirit. Okay, pretty straightforward. Again, a lot of what I teach is very much common sense. Let's look at a real world case study on the next slide. The book that you're going to be receiving, I thought, you know what, let's teach directly out of the lessons that help get the book to you and how we did it and the lessons you might draw from some of the things that we did. What we did, the new book, Positive Disruption, which this entire session is built upon, last spring became a 90-day idea, which became a deadline. I said to our team, I want to write a book in 90 days. It's going to be very tricky. The photo you see on the screen there is where the book was mainly written. It was under a place called The Tree. When you receive the book, I tell the backdrop story behind the book, where the book was written in that photo, and how I got inspired during the beautiful summer to get an aggressive goal done, such as writing a book. Folks, typically, to get a book done from idea to conception takes anywhere from 6 to 12 months at a minimum. We did it in 4 months. Not to boast, but to show the power that when you lock in and you have good people around you and you have a deadline and you're very positively motivated, you can accomplish great things. So let's look at the results. The next slide. The book went from inception in May to actually being released globally on December 8th of 2020. That was rapid fire. And again, I look at the great team around me, the optimism, the focus that was achieved by everyone involved to pull this off. It leaves a few clues that I think might help us all today. So we move on. What was the success formula? First point, accountability. I told a few people initially, I'm going to write a book in 90 days. That now put me on the hot seat to get this thing done. Continuing, I set a deadline with the team that I hired on, that I trust. And I also put it on social media in front of a few thousand people. Now I was held accountable publicly. We chunked it down. Many of you are writers, or you do a lot of writing or composition. Here's what I'm always asked. How do you write a book? You write it a page at a time, you chunk it down. In addition, we tied the book in with another goal. For example, new speaking opportunities, I believed, and now we're seeing it in physical form today, would come from the book. If the book was well received and the message resonated, I'd get a chance to speak and teach live with the new message. That's exactly what we're doing today. In addition, habit force. If you have strong habits, it builds positive momentum. Every day I kept writing. It became a force of habit. The team kept checking in. How's the book coming along? So that's another great way to get things done, is to have accountability. Also, I hired a kick-ass team. To get the dream work, you got to have the right teamwork. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's very real, okay? You have to have a good team that works in synergy, that also at times tells you, hey, have you thought about this? To push you to make a better work or to create better things. Also, we had fun. For example, last summer in June, we did a quote contest on social media. We got hundreds of submissions from fans and people that were interested in the book concept to participate and co-create the book. In addition, I watched my attitude very carefully. I did not turn on the box of doom. There's a bonus for you. The box of doom to me some days is your laptop or your television. Be very careful with media and what you put into your mind, okay? Less social media. I cut back because I was super busy, focused on the goal. I did my gratitude lessons every day. I meditated more and I wrote every single day. Continuing on, the final component here of how we produce this formula is I stayed in good shape. Summertime in the Midwest, I'm sure very similar to Alberta. It's beautiful. You get good weather. There's no snow, okay? And drank a lot of water. I watched what I put in. I got lots of vitamin D and sunshine. I took a couple of getaways or holidays with my children. that were easy to do, but got me away from the work to focus on my children. And again, continue to look inward, to pray and to meditate and to take long walks and to be outside. That to me is really some of the core components or the success formula of how we achieved a major complex goal in a short window of time. So I put that in there also because you're going to receive the book. And I want you to look through that list if you go back or you share this with people and say, hey, there's a couple little nuggets there that we're doing, or a couple things that I might want to add into my current habits. Continuing. So how to positively disrupt. Here's a quote that's going to appear from Tammy Bunnell that says, build from a position of strength. Start by asking yourself, do you need to reinforce today, or does someone need to reinforce you? Tammy Bunnell is the highest ranking female real estate executive in North America. She works with Exit Realty out of Boston, and approximately 24,000 people report to her. Gotten to know her the last few years. She's become a friend and peer. She's spoken at a couple of my live events. But Tammy, to me, leads from the front. She walks her talk. In an age where crisis reveals character, Exit, which ironically, if you head east, is based out of Toronto. Steve Morris founded Exit Realty out of Toronto. He's based up in the Ontario province. So she's based in Boston. And I watch and look for patterns of success. And to me, that quote there is loaded with a lot of power to positively disrupt. Continuing. So here's a core positive disruption question. What can I do today to better serve my clients or my team? Or maybe it's your board members, your volunteers, whoever you want to positively influence. Because here's the benefit you get. I know we have many businesses on this training today, in this exceptional day, is here's my thoughts. When you deliver exceptional customer service, which is rare, the benefits are many. You get referrals, repeat business, and raving fans. To me, if you really want to hone in, if you are leading from the front, people know you are positive, you listen to them, you're very authentic, and you show that you care. These are some of the byproducts, folks. So from a business perspective, I gave you a little slide or a little slice of what are some of the additional benefits. But when you are drawing on positivity and you are leading from it and you are exemplifying it, these are some of the benefits you will receive. All right, continuing. This is from the late, great Dr. Napoleon Hill. He wrote arguably the most classic book in personal development, Think and Grow Rich. It sold over 100 million copies. When he wrote it in 1938, the world was in the global depression when he wrote this. Here's what he said. Without doubt, the most common weakness of all human beings is the habit of leaving their minds open to the negative influence of other people. Folks, this is epidemic right now. We all have a cell phone. We all have a laptop. We have constant access to the internet. I call it distraction. We have about a 9-second attention span on average in North America. I get around smart people that document, that have the data to back it up. We are in an attention deficit world. And the challenge that you have is with all this constant stimuli coming at us is, what are you allowing in? What habits of media are you allowing to program you? Or are you taking control, which I advocate heavily in this entire session? You program your mind. You don't wait around and react. You respond by setting the stage, by influencing via your habits, which should be positive for the most part, how you're going to engage the world each day. Third strategy, and we're just about wrapped up here, to help you move forward into positive disrupt, is what I call option-based thinking. Always have another scenario, another backup plan, okay? This is just common sense, but sometimes we get caught locked in fear and doubt. So let's go back to the next slide here where it says 2020. I saw this slide and I thought this has to go in my presentations for this year. The life of an entrepreneur. If you look at from left to right on the slide, it says, hey, I'm starting a business. I'm doing it. Then all of a sudden there's a drop down. What have I done? Maybe it's a day later. The next day, hey, I'm feeling inspired at the top. Back in the valley, F my life. Back up to the top. I'm on top of the world again. The next day, why am I doing this? Then all of a sudden, maybe the next day, it's going to be okay. Folks, there's a little bit tongue in cheek here, obviously. Many of you on the line have started a business, or maybe you work for a small company. This to me is what goes through a lot of our minds as entrepreneurs. And if you work for an organization, I want you to think, if you want to write this down, you are an intrapreneur. With inside a larger organization, I want you to be thinking like an entrepreneur that has to come up as an intrapreneur with new ideas every day to add value and to solve problems to move the organization or company forward. It's called progress. So that to me is another interesting way of looking at how we made it through. We started with the Indiana Jones slide. You made it, congratulations, but we're still going to have some days like that. And maybe for some of you, some weeks where it's like, why am I doing this? Do not quit. Keep thinking forward. All right. Another quote here that comes up is from a good friend of mine out of North Carolina. His name is C.J. Ortiz. He teaches the best defense is a stronger you, or what it says there, your best defense is a stronger you. CJ is on the right in the photo. He calls himself the metal motivator. So that's a reference to heavy metal loud music. I'm already a fan. When he gets up in front of the room, I had people, this was at my event last year, actually 2 years ago in Detroit, where he spoke. And I had several business executives there that said, well, you know, he looked kind of like a heavy metal dude. And as soon as he took that microphone, people were like, wow, where did you get this dude? He's like a preacher crossed with a philosopher that looks like he plays in a heavy metal band. Okay. But here's what I love. Never judge the book by the cover. And the guy, when he speaks, had the room mesmerized for an hour. He's become a good friend, not only because he loves Metallica and he loves Tony Robbins, he likes, you know, motivation and music, but the guy is very, very wise. Folks, what you are doing today with this entire conference is you are investing to build a stronger you. If I really had to strip it down, Cindy and the team and all the sponsors and the board of directors are taking a big leap of faith forward. They're not sitting still. It'd be easy to sit right now, like many communities are doing, just waiting and reacting and hoping that things change. I encourage you, as you take the messages today and the wisdom, is to go out there, now that you're reinforced from a position of strength, and get out there and share it with others. Next point, lifelong learning is the new norm. This gives you more options. There's a quote below from Dave Liniger. He co-founded the big real estate company, Remax. Him and Gail Liniger, his wife, founded it in the early 70s. And what's fascinating is I've had a chance to get to know him the last 8 or 9 years now. And this was a photo taken in 2017 outside their headquarters in Denver. We did a live event in front of about 300 people in Denver. And I had a chance to interview him live. And that was the photo from the event, one of many interviews. And I asked him, I said, Dave, talk to me and the fellow real estate agents about why they have to continue to upgrade their skills. And he went back to, and he said, quote, I've probably read Think and Grow Rich 40 or 50 times. I alluded to Napoleon Hill a few slides ago. If you haven't read the book Think and Grow Rich, maybe you want to pick it up on Audible or check it out. It is sort of the staple of the personal development industry, one of a few key books that I've been recommending heavily the last 12 months because of what we're going through. But to me, if someone like Dave Liniger, who founded one of arguably the biggest real estate companies in the world, keeps saying you should go back and read this book, I definitely be a fool not to tell you that it's worth reading. And I read it every year. Okay. Some other resources. I want to share with you 2 other books that I think can definitely tune up your spirit. Again, I go back to Napoleon Hill. This is a book he wrote right after Think and Grow Rich called Outwitting the Devil. And why I share a lot of other authors when I train, this is sort of taboo in our industry. I don't believe I have the only answers. There's a lot of great minds. There's a lot of great books. There's a lot of great teachers. So I like to share other authors' books, even if people don't read my books. So I know that sounds a little strange, but I am not the almighty knower of personal development. There's other great teachers in books such as this one. Folks, this book, if you read it or listen to the audio, I will warn you, is almost written as if he was alive today. The book was written in 1938. Again, he wrote Think and Grow Rich in 1937. I stand corrected. He wrote this book in 1938. It was released posthumous in 2011. The family withheld this book for 40 years, the Napoleon Hill Foundation. You can look all this up. And the book was released later in time because they thought the book was too dangerous for civilization. I'm not making this up. It is phenomenal. He talks about how we get outwitted by fear and doubt and how to beat it. So again, a great book from the personal development industry. Next book, another great resource of value is Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl. This is a classic. It's taught at many universities around the world still. He survived several death camps during World War II. If you check this out of 22 people that went into concentration camps in World War II, 1 in 22 made it out alive. He was one of them. And the entire book, he talks about how do you find your meaning? Folks, how about that for relevancy? A timeless classic book from someone that went through the most atrocious things you can imagine to give us perspective that we can make it and push forward. Wrapping it up here with a couple more slides. The resistance, I call it. Now you can add in fear, will mess with your mind, your head, and your mission if you choose to let it. One of my favorite quotes, failure is part of the success process. A strong mindset is essential on the journey. You showed up today. You made it. You probably have been on some Zoom calls like the rest of us. You probably have a million other things you could be doing right now. But I want to congratulate you directly if I were looking at you face to face on this training to say, you showed up, and that shows a lot about you because you're not going to sit back and wait. You're going to look at things differently. You want to get on with life. You want to be going forward. You want to positively disrupt. And again, I commend you for being on this training today. Couple final slides here. Gunny Highway. This is also in the book you're going to be receiving. One of my favorite quotes is you adapt, you overcome, you improvise. In a world of great complexity and short attention spans, yes, I also teach simplicity. There's an elegance to simplicity that I enjoy, especially as I get older in life, that I want people to bottom line it for me. Yeah, I read books, I listen to podcasts, watch YouTube videos of great information to help me. But when it strips it down to take it into action, I like simple things and simple ways to move forward. Let's stay in touch. I know Cindy, you heard about me in the new book through social media. I want to encourage you to check out Mind Capture as one of my Facebook pages. And if you check on the right side there, you can follow me on Instagram at Tony Rubleski. In the final slide to end my session here to open up the conference is, you matter. Been saying this for years. And again, another quote included in the book you're going to receive. It says, never downplay the significance of your own life story and the positive impact it can have on others. So with that, Lethbridge Chamber, my good friends up in Alberta, thank you for the honor of starting this Mental Health Awareness Day. This is the debut in Canada, and what a great group to be a part of. Cindy, I'll turn it back to you. And again, have a great conference.
Well, thank you so much for your wonderful messages, Tony. It was exciting to hear you, and you definitely touched on a lot of our similar philosophies. Just even thinking about, I would strongly recommend everybody read Think and Grow Rich as well. I know Napoleon Hill's grandson very well, and that
Awesome.
Just some of the thoughts and the things that come out of that book are fantastic. I know we're kind of short on time, but if anybody wanted to throw a quick question to Tony into the chat line, we got a couple minutes, and then we're gonna take a quick break. Of course, you can reach out to us at any time, and we'll ship Tony off some emails, or just connect with him, follow him. He's got such inspirational things that he's always posting, and it always puts a smile on my face. So thank you so much. I can't wait to get the books. That border crossing, hey, it's challenging, but it's just fine. We will get you all the books. I just want to quickly say, attitude of gratitude is one thing that I talk about a lot. And there's a person in this room that I have great gratitude for, and that is one of our past presidents, Christy Kruger. And in your goodie bags, Christy gave everybody a cookie. And so make sure you get it out of your bag, go fill up your coffee, and we're going to start back, let's say 10 o'clock. If 5 minutes, that gives everybody 5 minutes to kind of get up, stretch, walk around, listen to some music, get some laughter in your body. And then we will start off with 10 o'clock sharp. How about that? All right. Thank you. Yes, I'll put Tony's Facebook link in. Great. Perfect. Awesome. We will return.
Take care, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Tony. We appreciate your time.
You're welcome. We'll be in touch. Have a good day.
We will be in touch. All right. It's 10 o'clock and I'm so excited about this next session. I hope everybody was able to warm up their coffee mug and get out their cookie. I have to tell you, I'm super excited about this first, well, all the panelists, but when we were thinking about how do we make this fun, and let me tell you, working in a home office has been a little bit crazy, and making sure that your space is warm and welcoming and something that you want to get into and plug in for the day. And so I'd been looking at some photos, and I'd seen a lot of Wendy's photos and just the different things and how she stages things. And I thought, this is what we need as part of our day. And just, you know, that enthusiasm behind making your workspace just adaptable to today's world. So I'm just going to, I'm going to jump right in, and we have Wendy and we have Gina with Stage Right. And I believe they have a PowerPoint that they're going to present. And I'm going to just let you get to it. And then we'll do some questions and such at the end. So welcome, Wendy and Gina.
Very pleased to be a part of your event. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So we'll get started as soon as our PowerPoint is up. There we go. So working at home has really become the new norm, and our environment has such a huge impact on our mental health, our well-being, our productivity. The vibes we get from our work at home space can have a significant impact. You know, it affects our productivity, our focus, our overall happiness. A workspace that isn't built for success can really deter our mental health and cause physical fatigue. Continuing. First of all, we need to deal with distractions. However you need to, remove those distractions. Generally, we work better in a space that's free of clutter. Creating a healthier home office often begins with a focus on what we can remove. Unfortunately, this is somehow what my desk looks like. So I have decided to declare National Clean Up Your Desk Day. It's a great way to schedule your personal organizing day.
It's National Desk Cleanup Day.
So if you can't get a dedicated workspace, get creative. So Wendy's desk is literally in an oversized hallway. So closets can be cleverly repurposed as cloffices. You can remove the bars and the shelves and add a small table or a desk. Close the door at the end of the day. If you can't find a dedicated space, find a drawer or a cupboard where you can put your laptop, your work files away. You want them to be out of sight at the end of your work day. This is going to help you create a mental sort of separation between your work and your home life. And if you can't put your work away, think about maybe a standing folding screen that could simplify your life.
Carry on. One more slide. Okay, perfect. Let's do an exercise. No, you don't have to stand up for this one, but pay attention to how you feel as you arrive in your workspace. Continue. Have a look at this space. You know, how would a space like this make you feel? Creating it obviously doesn't create positive emotions. So you really need to be conscious about how you feel when you walk into your workspace. There are subtle factors that can improve your mood, your focus, and alleviate your anxiety. Humans intuitively respond to environments that promote productivity, intimacy, and efficiency. Feelings. Artwork and photographs that evoke a particular emotion are always wonderful addition to your space. Next. In fact, it's science. Environmental psychology explains that the impact of design and environment and its effects on mood, engagement, productivity, and efficiency. So having a nice, calm space is going to just provide a better emotional experience for us as we spend so much time there. Next. There are some wonderful spaces created by Google, and you know that they know that it's a fact that creating wonderful workspaces, lend themselves to be, for the employees to be creative and collaborative. So they are having fun and they are happy. We'll move to the next one, please.
So another field of study is color psychology, and colors have an effect obviously on how we feel, and so they can have an effect on how we work. So here we see a slide of a beautiful blue office. Blue can boost productivity. It creates a stable and calming atmosphere when it's incorporated into workspaces and offices. Next is green. It's a peaceful color. It actually doesn't cause eye fatigue like other colors do. It also inspires creativity and balance between mind, body, and emotions. Next is this red space. This is a beautiful sort of burnt red, but red creates energy in the body. It often also inspires some confidence, which we all can use once in a while. Because of its intensity though, you want to use it a bit sparingly. Next is yellow. So yellow often inspires optimism. It also can inspire confidence and positive self-esteem. The color of the sun, it instantly warms a space and creates a happy radiance in any room. So environment, if you're feeling like your workspace or your office space is getting a little dull and boring, try to liven it up with some colorful decor and artwork. In my little home office workspace, I have lots of things that make me smile. So some great pictures of my kids when they were younger, and some current ones, some pictures of my family, bright, colorful artwork that always brings a smile to my face. Environmental psychology also tells us that exposure to natural light as we work improves our mood, and in fact, it will help us sleep better when we go to bed at night. So if you don't have large windows, for example, in this beautiful office that we did, try hanging some mirrors that will reflect the natural light into your space. It also will help you create sort of a larger, brighter looking workspace. Another thing you can always do is add greenery to your desk or workspace. It improves productivity and creativity. It can also help improve memory, lower stress, and it makes us happy. So for those without a green thumb, yes, you can use fake plants. They will also give you good vibes.
Welcome color into your space. If you want to make a statement but don't want to blow the budget, paint a feature wall. That could easily be a mood booster. Pick something that makes you happy. Lots of times we suggest that people take the paint chips that they're trying to decide between, tape them to the wall and look at them over 24 or 48 hours. Look at them in the morning light, the evening light. All of those different changes throughout the day are going to make some changes to the paint, how the paint color is going to show up. So if you don't want to do that, you could also, there are sample sizes available that you could paint a small section. just to ensure that that is the color that you want to go with. But whatever you do, pick a color that is going to create the feeling that you're looking for. Do you want soothing? Do you want vibrant? Do you want happy? The choice is all up to you. Next, please.
I see lots of jogging pants in your future. I also see lots of Zoom meetings. But seriously, employers are finding that their people working at home is really going well for them financially. So take care of yourself and make sure that you are creating an environment that is positive for you.
So to leave you with a few tips from working at home, keep in mind these few things. Try to get some privacy. Always have good lighting. Make sure that your work surface is adequate. Always make sure you're in a comfortable chair. Stay organized as much as you can. And last, but definitely not least, focus on your mental health. Check in with yourself. How are you feeling? What is this room doing for you mentally? Always focus on maintaining a good, positive mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you both very much. That was fantastic. I had to kind of laugh when I saw the clip with the paint chips flowing in the air. That would be me. That I let my husband pick the paint because it's challenging. But you definitely gave us many, many things to think about. And I look forward to maybe doing a little question and answer period at the end when everybody's done speaking. So thank you very much. That was very fun. And I need a national clean my office day. All right, so next we have, let me just pull up with Charlene, with Davidson and Williams. Is she in the room? There we go. Thank you. Okay, and so that's another one of those things about Zoom, because you don't see everybody. So I would like to welcome Charlene, and it's, I always love our conversations, and just have a little snip about Charlene. Very fascinating, and just the different angle. I think you'll all really appreciate what Charlene's about to share. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here. Thanks to the Chamber for inviting me to speak today. As Cindy mentioned, my name is Charlene Scheffelmair, and I'm a lawyer with Davidson and Williams. I also sit on the convener and catalyst committees for the Chamber, so I'm very honored to be here today. So being an employer can be very complicated, as many of you know. There can be a lot of moving parts, and in supporting employees with mental health concerns can also be complicated. And every legal situation is a little bit different, so and they're usually highly fact dependent. So today's information is meant to be a bit of a general guide, but as always, if you have a specific legal concern, I'd encourage you to speak to a lawyer that you trust, and they can give you tailored advice to your specific situation. As well, today's presentation isn't meant to be an exhaustive list of all the things that you might encounter as an employer, but hopefully can give you some insight as to some of the important duties that arise. So under the Alberta Human Rights Act, an employer cannot refuse to employ or continue to employ any person or discriminate against any person with regard to employment based on a mental disability. And mental disability is a broad term, but under the Act is defined as a mental disorder, developmental disorder, or a learning disorder, regardless of the cause or duration. So this can be a broad number of things like substance use disorders, mood disorders, anxiety disorders, and so it can cover a lot of things. Employers have some duties under the law that apply to mental health. One of those is under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and that's to ensure that as reasonably practicable, all the safety of your workers at the work site, which also includes psychological hazards. And the one that I'm going to focus on today is under the Alberta Human Rights Act, and that's called the duty to accommodate. So the duty to accommodate is a broad legal duty that applies in the human rights context. It's not just specific to mental health. And so essentially it is defined as the need to accommodate a person based on a protected ground under the Alberta Human Rights Act. And protected grounds are things like race, religious beliefs, mental disabilities, physical disabilities, among a very long list of human characteristics that are covered under the Act. And so employers, pardon me, have a duty to accommodate an employee up to the point of what's called undue hardship. And so this doesn't mean that just because an employee has asked for an accommodation that you have to offer the accommodation just because they've asked. But if an employee comes to you with a request for an accommodation, here are some kind of general best practices to use. So first of all, you want to respond to requests in a timely manner. You don't have to respond immediately, and you can let your employee know that you need to take some time to assess the request. But I mean, above all else, you want to listen to the employee and really take in their concerns, and have a good dialogue with them about what they need and what they're asking for. The employee should be able to explain to you why the accommodation is required, but there's a balance between the employee's privacy and them giving you enough information to assess the accommodation. The employee is not required to tell you what their diagnosis is. They just need to give you enough information to assess the accommodation. But that doesn't mean that you can't collect information. You can ask for documentation or medical information to help support the request. The onus is on the employee to provide that information to you. You can't accommodate something that you don't have enough information about, and you can't read your employee's mind. So there's some give and take here with the information. Additionally, you can ask for information about the prognosis for recovery, the employee's fitness for work, their fitness to perform certain components of their job, as well as any restrictions or limitations on their ability to do their job. And then you want to work with them as much as possible to develop a plan that'll work for both of you. Not all accommodations are going to be able to be done in the workplace, and every employer is going to have a different set of accommodations that will work in their business. What a manager of 25 people could be able to accommodate as far as scheduling will be different than a manager of 3 people. It's just the reality of everyone's businesses. And above all else, make sure you document everything as much as possible, because if a human rights complaint is made, a lot of what you've done is going to be based on the documents that you collected and the information that you wrote down, because you'll have to be able to show that you made and took steps to accommodate this employee up to the point of undue hardship. And so what is undue hardship? So they define it as accommodations that would create onerous conditions for the employer. So that could be like intolerable financial costs or a serious disruption to your business. But again, that depends on what your business is, the size of your business, and how your business functions. So you can't say one employer, this would be undue hardship for me, while your employer down the street, that could be very easily worked into their business. So there's not a set of accommodations per se that would fall under here. But employers have to make considerable effort to find these appropriate accommodations for their employees when they're approached. And again, as I mentioned, records are crucial in this assessment. So some examples of accommodations could be like things making changes to an employee's schedule or place of work, purchasing or adapting software, equipment, or tools, altering work duties, allowing for time off or for a leave, retraining the employee, changing their work rules or expectations, or altering your premises to make it accessible to the employee. And lastly, if you're looking for more information about what I've just discussed today, the Alberta Human Rights Commission has a website, and they have a lot of great employer toolkits that you can look up. And there's a pretty lengthy and detailed one on the duty to accommodate if you have more questions, as well as the Canadian Mental Health Association has some employer resources as well. And I think that is all I'll leave you with today, and hopefully I've been within my time. Thanks.
So Charlene, you did a great job. Thank you so much. And we thank you for the work that you do on 2 committees. Yes, she volunteers on 2 committees, and it's always, like, that's why I said it's always great to hear Charlene's perspective. And I also want to thank Davidson and Williams for their continued support. They were our main sponsor for our Business of the Year awards as well. So it's exciting to have your involvement in everything. And so I thank you for compressing something that normally would be talked about in at least an hour down to 10 minutes. So thank you for that. We're giving everybody a sample today. Great. Next, we're going to move on. You guys are being fantastic with your time today. Next, we're moving on to David, and he's with the Canadian Mental Health Association.
Thank you,
David.
Cindy.
Oh, there we go. Here we
Yeah.
go.
Well, to start off, I don't know what there is to say. We're all talking about mental health so much these days. I think Deborah alluded to that right at the top of the session today, that mental health has become part of our vernacular over the last year, and really made us realize how, with all the statistics that I could quote, 1 in 5 having a mental illness, or 5 in 5 Canadians having mental wellness that they need to take care of, this last year has really driven that home. And so today, I really wanted to take a look at who CMHA is here in Lethbridge and some of the services that we provide, either in terms of the community, in terms of individuals, but also how we can support employers and employees. So ultimately, at the end of the day, no matter what program we're talking about at CMHA, our goal is really to try and help meet people where they are at. And we mean this both physically, but also where they're at on their mental health journey. And we recognize that everybody's in a different place on their journey, and everybody has different needs, and everybody has different comfort levels, and everybody has different stigmas. Which means reaching out is a very complex, a very interesting, but a very challenging gambit. And we know that despite how many incredible services there are in Lethbridge, and there's so many that I've seen on the call today, that I have the pleasure of working with on a regular basis, that exist here in Lethbridge to help people, whether it's counseling, or whether it's help with housing, or whether it's help with employment training, that we don't want to duplicate. And we definitely want to try and help people find their way to those services, because we know how complex things are. So really our goal, and the programs I'm going to talk to you about today, is to connect with individuals to provide them with the support they need to find the right service for them. Most pressingly, oftentimes when we think of mental health, we think of people who are going into some sort of a crisis. And by all means, we want to make sure that there are services available, that people know where they can turn if they're experiencing a crisis. One of the things that we do, we operate the distress line of Southwestern Alberta here. And one of our biggest rules and our biggest training for our staff internally is that we don't diagnose what a crisis is. We will not tell somebody that what they are experiencing is not a crisis. Instead, we want them to reach out to us. We want to get them somebody safe to talk to when they feel like they're in a crisis. So we do have the distress line of Southwestern Alberta. It's available 24 hours a day. And it's available at 403-327-7905. I'll put all these numbers in the chat after I'm done. You can also find them all on our website or through some of our materials, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Ultimately, though, we know that mental health isn't just about when people are in a crisis. We know that people are on a journey the whole time, and different things can come up. And the last year has highlighted that a lot for us. We've seen a lot of people reaching out for concerns around financial help, for concerns around relationship breakdown, for trying to get training in a new field because their job situation has changed drastically. And we know that all of those things impact people's mental wellness. So really, we want people to be able to find where they're at. So alongside the city of Lethbridge and a program called Help Seeker, we've been working on what's called integrated coordinated access here in Lethbridge. So many of you may be familiar with Community Links. It's been our information and referral service at the library, and it's becoming a part of this larger integrated coordinated access system. A system that ultimately at the end of the day The goal of it is to allow people to connect where they feel safe. So if that's going to Lethbridge Family Services, if that's going to Lethbridge Housing Authority, if it's coming to a desk at the library or going to their son or daughter's school, having those options and those resources available that we can go to any door and receive the same level of support. We know that when things are going wrong in our life, the last thing we want to do is go through a phone book. The last thing we want to do is go through Google and try and find the best thing ourselves. So having those people, having those systems navigators who can go out in the community and really work with the individual seeking assistance to find that right door is critical, especially because stigma does exist and it's hard to reach out one time. And if you get told no or told this is not the place for you, there's a good chance you might not reach out again. And that's the last thing we want to see people, the last barrier we want to see people running into. Finally, so that would be the first two sort of avenues that we at CMHA have, is for people who are in crisis or people trying to avoid crisis. And then finally are people looking to better skills to help their resilience and their mental health journey. So we offer a Recovery College Lethbridge, which is peer support. So we know that oftentimes the people we learn the best from are our peers. And I think a conference like this is a great example of that. We're learning from each other and the expertise in the room. We can also do the same with our mental health and recovery. We can look at socialization skills and boundaries and when to chat and when to not chat. And really look at what is out there in terms of not necessarily specific diagnosis, but what specific skill sets do I want to develop? And so through Recovery College Lethbridge, which is all free and accessible at recoverycollegelethbridge.ca, you can go through and sign up for classes. Again, none of the programs, none of our services have any sort of diagnosis required. It's all self-referral. So we will try to make people feel as comfortable as they can to come to our services. We know that there are so many questions and so many challenges when it comes to mental health. And we know it's a very wide and diverse gambit, and I can only cover so much in 10 minutes here. But we know that when it comes to mental health, and whether that's our own personal journey, whether that's those around us, be it family, be it coworkers, be it employees, or even our entire community, that we want to help people navigate and find the support they need when they need it. So if I could leave just one word of advice, we want people to know that it can be hard to reach out, and that no matter who you might be reaching out for, we love hearing from you. We love finding ways that we might be able to work together to support you and learn and find new ways that support our community and really foster our mission of building a society of mentally healthy people in a mentally healthy world. And ultimately, hopefully, fingers crossed, and I might be one of the only ones on the call to say it, but hopefully putting myself out of a job, because we all deal with mental health and we're at the point where we don't need an organization focused on that anymore. So thank you.
Thank you, David. You know, I really like how you just said resilience skills. You know, that is a really important part of our life, no matter what's going on. And I'm going to have either Nika or Catherine reach out to you, because I think listing off just some of those quick reference numbers in our newsletter or in our on our website would be extremely helpful for people. So thank you very much again for condensing an hour-long conversation into 10 minutes. Our final panelists today are, this is one of the things where I'm working from remotely, is usually you have all your paperwork, you got the print off of everything, but it's going back and forth today. Nicole and Rhonda, and they're representing the Chartered Professionals in Human Resources of Alberta. So we've got the team of them that are going to speak to us today, and I'm very excited to hear what they have to share. There we go.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm just going to wait for the deck to come up here. Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you, Lethbridge Chamber, for inviting CPHR, Chartered Professionals in Human Resources, to the table in the session today. We truly do appreciate it. And today I want to talk a little bit about some of the resources that we do have and a little bit about CPHR, and then I'm going to hand it over to Rhonda. So as Cindy said, my name is Nicole Bourgeois, and I'm the coordinator of member engagement and experience, and it's my passion to deliver education, experience, and networking to our members, our human resource members as an association. And in doing that, we are also able to create resources for the communities of which they reside in. So a little bit about CPHR. We are the professional association dedicated to strengthening human resources professions and upholding the highest standards of practice. And we do have 7 chapters throughout the province, including our Lethbridge chapter. And from that Lethbridge chapter, we have over 120 CPHR members, human resource members, that are potential resources for you within the community to access, and some of which who also are part of the Lethbridge Chamber Human Resource Committee as well. So there are some great accessible resources as human resources for you to be able to access if you don't have those dedicated HR professionals. Now more than ever, mental health and mental fitness of our organizations truly does determine the success of our organizations. And as a human resource association, we work closely with partners and stakeholders to provide our members and their communities with resources, education, strategies, and tactics to create those mentally healthy workplaces and engaging all levels of leadership and employees. CPHR Alberta has recognized the importance of supporting its members, next slide please, through the development of multiple professional partnerships, such as with Headversity, who I know you'll be hearing from a little later on this morning, and other professional organizations. We also deliver resources and sessions through personal development opportunities. And without our HR professionals looking after themselves and their own self-care, it's very difficult for them to be leading the charge within their organizations, especially during this time. We found that in speaking with a lot of our members locally in Lethbridge and throughout all our jurisdictions, it was, excuse me, our human resource professionals or our business managers who really led the charge in the changes, the significant changes in their organizations through process, policy, and employee engagement. So we feel that if our HR professionals are exhibiting some self-care and taking part in their self-care, and by providing some of that for them, they will be able better to lead their teams and their organizations through this fundamental change. We also support our members and their communities. So anybody who is not a member of CPHR Alberta also has the opportunity to access these resources of online certificate and other PD opportunities or professional development opportunities, and delivering, again, education and tactics on creating diverse and mentally healthy workplaces. And some instances where, and sessions around working with the occupational health and safety departments and regulations as well, and practices. A lot of times we find that our human resource departments do collaborate and intertwine with OH&S. So developing strategies and opportunities to work collaboratively with those departments, as well as a lot of times, especially in small businesses and entrepreneurs, they are the OH&S and they are the human resource person, they are the business management person. So giving them opportunities to be able to access some support and education and tactics around working in those buckets. We also provide professional development, education, and information and resources through our blogs, our magazines, and a robust consultant list on our website as well for you to be able to access. And again, many Lethbridge local consultants are listed on that list for you to look into if you are requiring some human resource supports, especially in creating wellness programs or initiating different mental health strategies within your workplace, as well as some of the nonprofit organizations that also exist in your community. I do want to say that many of our professional development resources and sessions are at low or no cost to non-members of CPHR Alberta as well. And I think this is really important, again, for all you business leaders out there who don't necessarily have designated HR departments or business departments that lead some of these significant people changes in creating mentally healthy workplaces. So I would encourage you to continue accessing the resources through the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce, and we are working towards creating some more of our PD opportunities into the chamber calendars as well for you to access, but also encouraging you to access the Canadian Mental Health Association, the Mental Health Commission of Canada, and I hope that you add CPHR Alberta to your resource list as well. Now, I've outlined a few of the CPHR Alberta supports that we have for our members and their communities, but I'm going to turn it over to someone from your own community who is a well-respected and known chartered professional human resources individual, Rhonda Ailes, who is also the director of human resources for the Lethbridge School Board, to talk to you about how, as an HR professional, she's been able to develop, implement, and support mental health initiatives within her organization. Rhonda?
Thanks so much, Nicole. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the Chamber for having me today. HR is my passion. I will start off with that. I have a master's in HR. I'm a certified HR professional, as you've heard. I, like Tony, love people. I truly want to make a difference. What I get to say is, or what I share every day is, I get to support people every day. I get to teach 3rd and 4th year students at the University of Lethbridge. I get to help my community. Notice I didn't say I have to, because I do believe when someone comes in to meet with me, it's my pleasure to meet with them. It's how can I support them? I know many of you are small businesses and you might not have an HR person. Many of you might be taking care of those HR or people issues, maybe from the side of your desk. And I wanted to start off today sharing that it's okay. You're not to be perfect. Bottom line, we just need to start supporting our employees, start supporting ourselves. So Lethbridge School Division isn't perfect. I'm going to own that to all of you today. We're a work in progress. We're committed to improving. It's important that we care about our employees. It's important that our employees matter. So we essentially have 25 different business units, as many of you have many different units. We're a work in progress. We have unique cultures at each of those units. We have different leadership styles. All of that can be extremely complex. We do have an amazing benefit plan, and that's something for some of you to consider, but there's other options for some of you that don't have benefit plans to offer to your employees, other resources, as you heard from other presenters and panelists today. So look into that for sure. Lethbridge School Division believes in professional learning. We are education, so that makes sense. And again, think about how far we've come. Last year was not easy. The continued uncertainty, the ongoing stress, how that affects how we feel, how we think, and how we act. One thing is universal, and that is people need more support and they're turning to their employers for help. As employers, we're really seeing challenges in remote work, an increasing number of younger employees seeking support, and really no two businesses are feeling the same impact. So thanks. I was just going to ask for the next slide. So it's okay to say, I'm not okay. I had an employee that it really resonated. It took her 4 times driving around the block before she got the courage to come inside to get help. That really resonated with me, and I hope it does with you as well. So is HR or am I intimidating? What stigma is carried with disclosure? Is it okay to say we're not okay in your organization? What other factors, such as maybe the thoughts of financial pressure, maybe family pressure, are added into this employee when they come in to meet with me? How does that play into the situation? Bottom line is, I do have some buttons I'm wearing today, is you matter and I care. So those are some things I think I'd really like to leave you with. Next slide, please. as leaders, I always like when I come to sessions like this, some takeaways. So as leaders, it's important to think about some questions. Ask your team about how open you are to some of these questions. Do we have open conversations about mental well-being? So do senior leaders take or participate in conversations about mental well-being? And do they show that buy-in? Is there truly an open door policy? Remind staff that diversity of perspectives, including those who have lived in mental health issues, that they're encouraged to share, and it's encouraged that it's an inclusive environment. Have you implemented policies or procedures to promote mental health? Disclosure can help an employee seek the appropriate resources and care before conditions worsen. So that's something to understand when we're thinking about well-being rather than just mental illness. Do you understand that prevention is better than cure? So it's essential to remember that all of us are susceptible to stress, and that can result in a decline in anyone's mental health. Do our benefits support mental well-being? So what are you offering to your employees, and is that a holistic approach? Do we encourage self-care, which I'm also going to speak about at another slide, but do we encourage ourselves to take care of ourselves so we can help our employees? Getting plenty of sleep, the basics, right? And am I empathetic? So there's 4 key principles in thinking about empathy: perspective taking, staying out of judgment, recognizing emotion in other people, and communicating that. I believe a quote from Brené Brown is, empathy fuels connection while sympathy drives disconnection. So something else to think about. So some other resources. I believe all employees, including myself, wake up every day wanting to do their best. And I try and approach myself in working with employee issues, whether it's a tricky accommodation or perhaps a grievance, but every day, if I come with the mindset that, this employee woke up this morning wanting to do their best, and how I approach that situation usually follows because of that mindset. So allowing people to tell you that you're not yourself today. So I've given you some samples of buttons that we have floating around the school division. So I'm not myself today. You matter, I care, I spoke to those. You've totally got this. Breathe. Sometimes you need to name it to tame it. So this idea is really by identifying what we're feeling, it can make a sense of our experiences in real time, and it can regain a sense of calmness for us. Canadian Mental Health Association also has an amazing platform and program, and it's called Not Myself Today. So you're welcome to check that out as well. Next slide, please. I really appreciate that Charlene spoke a little bit more about this, but do we as leaders have an obligation to address mental health in the workplace? And yes, we do. As she mentioned, I'm not going to go into this too deeply, but we have responsibilities under occupational health and safety, as well as the Alberta Human Rights Act. So bottom line is we have to start, and we do have to take care of our employees' mental health at work. It is our responsibility. Next slide. Again, I wanted to leave you with a couple of things in your toolkit to take away. So saying yes to you. So this is courtesy of our benefit provider from Alberta School Employee Benefit Plan. And this is just talking about self-care. And you can't pour from an empty cup. So you can't give people your best when you're burnt out. So taking care of you is so important. Next slide. And then another activity you might think about in dealing with some of your employees is the time quadrants activity. Again, this came out of our benefit plan, and it just helps some employees really figure out what's truly important in their day, necessities, deceptions, opportunities, and time wasters. Often that can be an activity that you can do in working through a tricky situation, so you can look to that after as well. Next slide, please. So as we all know, we might not be in control of every situation and its outcome, especially during our journey in COVID, but you can control your attitude and how you deal with it. So mental health support for employees isn't new. We need to figure out how we can adjust our cultures to allow employees to say that they're not okay, and then connect them to the resources available. Have a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach, and reduce the stigma around getting help. So thanks so much for having me. And I'm not sure if Nicole, you want to summarize anything.
Thank you, Rhonda. Again, just wanted to encourage everyone attending today to check out your local chamber, check out your local CMHA, and of course, as I said, include CPHR Alberta as part of your mental health resources list. And thank you all again, Rhonda, especially for being our CPHR representative and being able to talk about really incorporating those strategies into the workplace. Thank you and have a great day today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nicole and Rhonda. Rhonda, I love your buttons. I think we need a couple of those. I know I could use one or two of them once in a while. And I have to tell you, earlier, Tony talked about that contagious being, the enthusiasm and such. And one thing I appreciate about Rhonda's on our talent resource committee. And she always comes in with a very enthusiastic attitude, which is contagious, and it's wonderful to have her on that committee. I just wanted to give a quick plug to that committee because it is that committee that's the driver for events like this, and showcasing how important it is just to have these wonderful conversations about mental health. I'm watching the clock like mad so we can get everybody in today. That's one of the things about trying to condense it into a half a day meeting, but this is working just fine. Now, I believe we have a TELUS video that we're going to play. Wonderful.
Welcome to
Thank you.
Calm. Calm is the mental fitness app known for creating content to help you ease anxiety, sleep better, and live a happier and healthier life. In the Calm app, there are hundreds of hours of guided meditations designed for mindfulness. As you open Calm, you'll find the most popular feature, the Daily Calm, an inspiring meditation that explores a new mindful theme each day. From beginners to intermediate and advanced users, there are a variety of sessions available. We know you have a busy life, so guided meditation sessions are available from 3 minutes up to 25, making it easy to choose the ideal length to fit with your schedule. Sleep stories are bedtime stories that are guaranteed to lull you into a deep and restful slumber. Calm has over 150 sleep stories for adults and children alike, featuring well-known voices such as Matthew McConaughey, Lucy Liu, Eva Green, and more. Drift off to dreamland and wake up feeling refreshed. Keep calm and focused with calm music, curated to help you relax and focus, featuring audio from artists like Sam Smith, Moby, Above and Beyond, and Sigur Rós, just to name a few. Your surrounding noise will fade as your environment transforms with calm soundscapes. Escape the chaos by playing calming ocean waves or the gentle sound of rain on leaves. And there's even more to uncover. And that's Calm, your personal toolkit for integrating mindfulness into your daily life.
I think I could use a little calmness. That app sounded really good. There's a lot of things all wrapped up into one. So thank you for sharing with that, TELUS. Now, I think I'm going to give everybody a break till 10:55. I will get that music going in the background again, and then we will introduce our final speaker of the day. So this is an opportunity to get up, walk around, listen to some music, dance away if you like, and we will be back at 10:55. Thank you, everyone. There we go. I didn't want to say turn that song off. It was so good. Actually, Catherine from the office sent me a message and said, this playlist is awesome. I think you guys picked my playlist today. First, we started with Don't Stop Believing, and now Chris Cornell is just, and that cover was just, Well, I'm going into this next session just totally pumped now. Oh, I'm glad we took some breaks today. You know, that was one of the things with a long Zoom meeting. We were concerned about making sure we get everybody some proper break opportunities. So anyway, that was music. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to introduce Isabella Roth. She is with Infinity Healthcare Limited, and they just became a member recently. And so we were excited when they asked if they could sponsor the final speaker for today. So Isabella, I'd like to introduce you, and then you could introduce our final speaker, please. And thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for the introduction, Cindy. So my name is Isabella Roth. I'm a registered nurse by background, and we have a home care company across Alberta and BC now. And we really do value, actually, I'm wearing my pin right now, not myself today. So I love that it was brought up. It's a great program. And we value mental health in both of our clients and our employees so much that we do something called personality matching for all of our clients. So if you speak Italian, we're not going to bring somebody that doesn't understand your language and the culture. So we're going to find caregivers that speak your language and understand what you like and they like. So our employee retention is really high. And we find that if people actively enjoy working, they're going to be happier, and then they're going to provide better care. So yeah, and we didn't expect to grow into Lethbridge so quickly, but we're just shy about 20 clients, and you guys have been such an amazing city for us and such kindness. So thank you for that. And as I'm going to introduce Dr. Ryan Todd, I'd like everyone to know that we're among a celebrity. And he is the 2019 top 40 under 40, and he is a practicing psychiatrist, and Headversity. I had a chance to speak with his colleague Stephen, and Dr. Todd, I do apologize. I found some information about you that I'm going to share. So just to say a little bit about Headversity, it's a mental well-being platform, and it's actually pretty fascinating because it's like a pre-EAP employee assistance program. So they try and actually gauge to your mental health before you actually get to the bottom. So it's a great platform. And Dr. Ryan Todd grew up in Macklin, Saskatchewan. And here's a really interesting part. Dr. Ryan Todd knows how to play a game called Bannock, kind of like Bannock, but with a U. And it's a game about throwing horse ankle bones at other horse ankle bones. It's fascinating. And there's a championship there that happens every August long weekend. So I found that to be very, very fascinating. And the other thing that I found out about Dr. Ryan Todd, and I was actually going to dress up as this today for you, but I decided not to because, you know, I'd have to take it all off. But Dr. Ryan Todd has a little fear of clowns, as do I. So I was going to dress up for you today, Dr. Ryan Todd. So yeah, and without further ado, and I know we're a little bit on a time crunch, so allow me to introduce Dr. Ryan Todd.
Thank you very much for the introduction and for telling everyone my deepest, darkest secrets. I am amongst somebody who has gotten third place in the World Bannock Championship, and to this day it's my greatest accomplishment. And I want to thank you for joining us today. To kick off what we're about to discuss, I brought something from my area in rural Saskatchewan, and it is an old tractor wheel. Okay, so what is this doing here? This is from Columbus, Indiana, and it was made by a company called Reeves International Machine Company. And what you'll notice about this is that it does not look like a typical thing that would go in a tractor. Why? Because it's made of wood. Now, at the time, most tractor parts, this is like 120 years old, so we're talking 120 years ago, most tractor parts were made out of cast iron. And there was an old problem with the weight of cast iron. And what this company did, and I'll set that down so it doesn't smash apart, was build it out of wood. And this was an old problem that they had for years and years in agriculture was the weight of this particular wheel that would go in a belt and that would turn a whole bunch of machinery. And they continued to address this problem in the same way, trying to make smaller cast iron, smaller steel parts, which they knew were very heavy. It was the same problem, but this company, Reeves International Machinery, they took a brand new approach 120 years ago and created this amazing piece of architecture, which is literally 100 small pieces of wood, and they brought it together and they put it under incredible stress, and it made it as strong as cast iron, but it was 10 times as light. And so they could put it anywhere on the tractor and it would hold up and it wouldn't weigh down the machinery. Now, why is this important? Well, first of all, there's some amazing ingenuity that went into this. These are known around the world as a very strong and durable part, even though they're made out of what were thought to be inferior materials. Number two, this ingenuity was had because they needed to do something different. They needed to approach this problem in a different way, as opposed to continuing going down this cast iron route that they had done for many, many years before that. And that is essentially what we're talking about today, taking new approaches, putting new tools in place that we can give individuals to get through this very difficult problem. And I want to level set with you all today about the actualities around the pandemic that we're in. And I'm not a virologist, I am not an internal medicine doctor or an intensivist, I am a psychiatrist. So of course I'm going to talk about the other pandemic, the very real pandemic that you and I are facing in terms of our own mental health, that you and I are facing as leaders in terms of the mental health of our employees, the mental health of those in this province, in this country, in this world right now. And that, of course, is the echo pandemic around mental health. Let's break down from a physiologic standpoint what is actually happening here. Pre-pandemic at Adversity, we often talked about being in a blue brain state and a red brain state. It's a perfect metaphor, I think, for what we often feel. We know what it's like to be in blue brain, where we are poised, where we are confident, where we are calm, we're well rested, ready to be our absolute best self at any given time. We know what that's like. We've all been there. We also know what it's like to be in a red brain state, where we are distracted, where we are exhausted, where we are not mindful, we are frustrated, we're tense. That is the red brain state that the world is constantly trying to pull us in. And that was before the pandemic. Now, put the pandemic on us, and it's about a year ago since we've sheltered in place and we had to isolate from each other. And most of us have been in this continual red brain state, high levels of epinephrine and cortisol, those stress hormones, because we have no certainty. We're living in a very gray state where we don't know what's going to happen next. Whenever we get good news, that tends to be backed by bad news. Also, our brains are made to pick out the threats in our environment. Quite simply, that is how our brains are made. From an evolutionary standpoint, we survived because our brains were very good at picking up the things that could harm us. Now you fast forward thousands and thousands of years, our brains are still very good at picking out the threats, and there are threats everywhere. There are literal health threats, there are threats to our finances, threats to our stability in our family structure, threats to the way we celebrate holidays, and we continually see those, and we put ourselves in that red brain state. That is what all of us are feeling right now. There are very physical manifestations of that. There are very psychological and emotional manifestations of that. But we all know what it's like to be in this perpetual red brain state. And that is the battle we're fighting right now. That is the new battle and that exhaustion therein. I want to get your sense of this right now. So if you could go on www.menti.com, and I want a show of hands here digitally to see what level responds to your state of optimism right now. Okay, so go on menti.com, 7663189 is your code. 7663189 is your code. And I want you to ask yourself and share with everyone today, am I optimistic? I try to be optimistic, or I am not feeling optimistic. Which one of those three states are you in? And this will give us a good sense from everyone. Again, a digital show of hands to see how we're feeling in time and place right now. Menti.com, 7663189. I'll give you a moment. So we have some great numbers here. Thank you for participating. It gives me a good sense of how everyone is doing at home and in their workplace. We had a good number of people, the majority, vast majority, are saying, I'm trying to be optimistic right now. That is what our state is we're trying. A good number has said, you know, I'm not optimistic. It's tough to do. A good number have said, I'm trying, but the majority of us have said, at least we're attempting, and I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you for engaging with that. At Adversity, we have hundreds of thousands of people who are a part of our platform, and we're so blessed to be able to provide that service for so many employees. But we asked the workforce, we said, are you optimistic? And we heard in February of last year, 2020, 39% of the workforce said they are optimistic. We took a similar group a year after that, deep into the pandemic. This is very recent data, 26%, a quarter of the workforce, have said that they are optimistic. And this is baseline data from hundreds of thousands of Adversity users and people who are on this platform every single day. So it's interesting to note that our optimism is eroding. Our way of approaching these issues are eroding. Our ability to get into that blue brain state is eroding. And we need to think about new solutions and approach this in a totally different way. And to encapsulate and normalize what you're going through and what it really means to be a part of the echo pandemic of mental health, we're talking about job insecurity, personally or for others. We know with fluctuations in commodity prices and absolute depression in the economy, job security is first and foremost concern, which leads to financial stress. It's very logical. We don't know how to approach this economy when we are in this job insecurity. We've seen a distinct lack of identity with so many individuals. All of this coming from our jobs shifting very suddenly. Our importance in our family and being there for others has shifted dramatically. Our ability to be there for others. And that has led to a loss of identity. And a core issue that I have seen so much clinically is around isolation and loneliness. And for me, you know, it really hit me over Christmas. I had never realized how much of a reset that time in my life is. Every single year I get to reset with my family, share some laughs, have a bunch of food, and you know, take 4 to 5 days and just reset. And we couldn't do that this year. My parents, who are still in Macklin, Saskatchewan, were not able to celebrate with us. And we've all felt that. We all felt that isolation and loneliness. And these are contributants to what it means to be a part of an echo pandemic. And those of us who are more vulnerable on the spectrum of mental health have been pushed into a place where they're in absolute crisis right now. Contributing to all of this, of course, and just to give us a level set, a sense of what is going on with this echo pandemic, we're hearing noise. We're hearing tons of noise about helplessness and hopelessness, whether it is, political upheaval, whether it is social upheaval, whether it is, strain about the vaccine rollout or second variants and third waves. This is putting us into a place of hopelessness and helplessness, and we're feeling that in a very real sense right now. And the results, unfortunately, in terms of our health, in terms of our longevity and our mortality as a country has been very real. Suicide rates have more than doubled since the beginning of the crisis. As a psychiatrist, this absolutely breaks my heart because I put my life work into helping people and preventing this, and to know that this pandemic has created this situation where suicide rates have doubled gives me a sense at times of a bit of helplessness and at times a bit of a hopelessness. And I want to talk to you today about how we can, as a group, move on from this, how we can improve, how we can get tools in people's hands and approach this in a new way, a lot like the Reeve family did when we were talking about machine tractors and building those out of wood. The main problem that we have seen across this is we weren't ready for it. We were in no way, from a systems point of view, from a psychiatrist, psychology, social work practitioner point of view, ready for this wave. We weren't even ready for it in terms of our public health planning and our governance and our corporate structures around how to deal with this. So we have a very new problem, which is this wild pandemic. We're in it for a year now, and we have the same set of tools to work with. What are those tools? Well, the tools are the healthcare system that is currently struggling to keep up with numbers. Those tools are currently EAPs that we have in our organizations, and we'll talk a little bit about how we can start to parse that apart and why that's important. The approach that we've had before was like getting into workshops and talking about, peer support and talking about depression. We have a very new problem, everyone, and we need to come up with new approaches and really push our creativeness and our curiosity on how we can do this to a new limit, because the problem is so dire right now. We know that 78% of employees have suggested that COVID-19 has negatively impacted their mental health. We all know that. What we didn't know is that 76% of workers said their companies should be doing more to support workplace mental health. That's 3/4 of employees has said, my company is not doing enough. It should be doing more. There's further data to this to show that 80% of employees, in particular who are in that millennial Gen Z demographic, have said that they would shift companies, they would move companies if another company offered more mental health, mental wellness support for them. So we're seeing this very new problem, this very real problem in the workplace. And we unfortunately continue to rely on our old tools. And what are some of those tools? Well, we've talked about, everything that we've done up until 2020 before this pandemic, the things that we felt really worked. Mental health first aid and doing training amongst our leaders was something that we often did in person, helped create literacy around mental health. It helped move the needle around stigma. We had the 1 in 5 campaign that really explored, wow, 1 in 5 of us might have a mental illness. We had telehealth to an extent, and this has absolutely exploded, telehealth and telepsychiatry in the new world. But we had that as a tool that would work. Previous to the pandemic, 8% of Americans said that they would be comfortable seeing their family doctor through a telehealth platform. Now it is 48%. So half of us are okay to engage with practitioners in the telehealth format. The focus has been on that up to 2020. And finally, our focus has, in the last 100 years, definitely been on employee assistance programs. We have a number of big players, obviously, in this country and in the US, of what those employee assistance programs look like. And they continue to move along with the workforce. But it has absolutely been, in my opinion, when we're talking about workplaces, the leading provider of mental health supports. There's some point solutions, there's some add-ons, without a doubt, and I don't think anyone is positioned to put an argument forth that EAPs are not still the foremost provider of mental health in our workplace. Now, that was relatively okay before the pandemic, right? We knew that we'd get 5 to 8% of our organization who, if they were in crisis, would call the EAP. There were some frustrations there, but for the most part, that was totally okay. EAP providers provided and continue to provide a one-stop shop for what they were doing in terms of providing mental health supports. They'd also provide 24/7 access to services, a really important thing to do. The issues that we've seen throughout the pandemic with a lot of EAPs is utilization has gone down. We've seen not just low, but decreased utilization. We've seen wait times, unfortunately, for some organizations in the public healthcare system and through EAPs increase during the pandemic. We've heard, our number one complaint about any EAP across North America is, where do you find it? It's difficult to navigate. And unfortunately, we have seen a lack of really strong data around backing up utilization, backing up efficacy, backing up ROI. I take personal responsibility in this. As a healthcare practitioner, we've done a terrible job in mental health at providing data. I think it is the only area of business where we've said the excuse that it's okay to have a checkbox solution. We've told ourselves to that. We've lied to ourselves about it for many years. And again, I take personal responsibility that we have not had the vision to provide data around mental health that works and is predictive and is truly analytics. And I think that has created a situation where EAPs and our current resources have actually become stigmatized. And why have they become stigmatized? Well, there's an old friend of mine who was an anthropologist, and he worked in West Africa, and he worked in sub-Saharan Africa at the height of the HIV/AIDS crisis in the early 90s and going into kind of the late 90s. And the main thing that he found through years of research in sub-Saharan Africa was that if you could not provide a solution that worked and that was easily acceptable, It actually made stigma worse. And here was his example. He was in a field office, literally a tent in a field, just outside a small village in a sub-Saharan African country. And he noted that there was a number of people who were coming to the field office to get tested for HIV/AIDS. The program was about a month. He noticed that the first 2 weeks, they were getting really strong uptake of people coming to get tested. That was an important first step, as they felt it to be an important first step. The last 2 weeks of the program for this month, they had no one come. And why was this? He had to closely ask himself this. This was his area of study. He was an anthropologist after all, a medical anthropologist. And when he went and asked people, why are you not coming to the clinic to get tested? Most of them said, we would come to get tested to the field office. We would get the diagnosis of, yes, you are positive, you're HIV positive, and then there was no treatment. And if there was treatment, it was not accessible. It was too expensive. It was too difficult to access. So essentially what the practitioners were doing, what the physicians were doing, were saying, okay, you have your HIV diagnosis. That's all we got for you. As you could imagine, if there is no solution, the stigma gets worse. And that is where we're finding ourselves with mental health, is because the solutions pre-pandemic and into the pandemic were so difficult to access, were so expensive. It actually made stigma worse in this situation. And I want to engage you in a quick question again. What has been your EAP experience? Some of us have had amazing EAP experiences, and employees know about it and use it regularly. Some of us have said, employees know about it, but they rarely access it. Some of us have said we have low awareness and low utilization. Your code is 916734, and go on menti.com. And this gives us a level set EAPs as a more traditional and a very necessary service. Where are you at with your utilization? Because I want to explore how we can think about this in different ways and push our employees into wellness, into ways that help us more. Okay, so menti.com 916734. What has been your EAP experience? Great, so thank you for engaging with that. The vast majority of us have said employees know about it, but they rarely use the EAP, or rather that we have low awareness and low utilization. Now, I appreciate your honesty in that because we have and still are largely reliant on EAPs to provide the very excellent service that they do in terms of crisis support. And I am by no means laying this mental health pandemic at the feet of EAPs or at the feet of the public healthcare system, which I am very much a part of. What I'm thinking about here is how we can approach this in a new way. A lot like this tractor tire that I have here, this tractor wheel. How can we take old materials that have been seen as maybe not as good and solve this problem the way the Reeves family did again? And to highlight the problem with our current kind of resources that we have in the workplace, there's an absolute supply and demand issue. We have under 10% utilization on average. And now, as we stated, we have 76% of the workforce saying our workforce needs to do more. And that same number of people saying if they don't do more, I may leave the company. Or rather, if there are others who were doing more in their workplace, I would leave for that organization. So So there's an absolute supply demand issue that has been cranked right up because of the pandemic. And as a Stephen Covey, I'm a big Stephen Covey fan, we would know that if you're going to keep doing what you're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. Our system that we have right now is perfectly designed to create the results that it produces. Think about that for a moment. Our system that we've created right now through public health care, through EAPs, through the supports we have in place, through destigmatization programs, our system is designed perfectly to create the results that we have right now. And what are those results? Well, we saw some of those results. People needing more help, people being in this chronic red brain type of state. And as we stated, suicide rates have doubled across the country, and we need to look at how to get ahead of this. Now, fortunately, there are models for how this could work and how we could put tools in individuals' hands and how to empower them. As we got introduced today, I'm from a very small town. And part of that story was, growing up and hearing the stories from all the old folks in Macklin, Saskatchewan. And one of these stories that I love was about the old telephone system. Our town had, up until the early 50s, a telephone operator that would work an operating telephone board and connect you with very specific people. Okay, so there was about 3,000 people on the system. If we set up that system today, it would cost the equivalent of about $1 million for those 3,000 people. These are largely folks on ranches and farms and in our small town. Very expensive system. And it was very much brokered, the whole system, by that telephone operator. There's one individual who worked at the town hall office. And when you would call that individual, they would chat with you. They would say, hey, how's it going? Maybe talk about the weather. And they would connect you with who you're supposed to talk to. There was a human touch. And something I remember very distinctly about hearing the stories about the telephone operator was that they always said you needed the human touch. No one in their right mind would just want to call someone directly on a telephone. Now think about how wild that is, knowing where telecommunications has come in the last 50, 60, 70 years, that they felt like you needed a human to connect you with someone. Now, this reminds me a lot of my practice as a psychiatrist. If you are in my region of the world and you have a certain type of mental illness, I deal mostly and work with mostly people who have faced extreme medical adversity. If that happens to you in this area, you have to come see me. It's really difficult to see anyone else. And in fact, you have to wait probably 6 months to see me. And if you would like to see someone privately, it's going to cost you $300 an hour. This is highly inaccessible and not affordable for most individuals. By and large, not accessible for most individuals. Similar to this telephone system back in the day in the 30s and 40s and 50s in my hometown, if you wanted to call someone, you needed to go through this one power broker. A lot of people couldn't afford the phone that they had in their home, and there was a cost. There was a toll fee every time you got connected. A highly inaccessible system. Now, luckily that system was entirely disrupted, and here's a number that tells you why and tells you how. In the 1950s, there were 480,000 telephone operators that worked for AT&T in the US alone. That's one company, the largest company, but just under 500,000 telephone operators that worked for that organization. Now, fast forward 10 years into the 1960s, what happened? Well, the automatic telephone system happened. A piece of technology that said, we maybe don't need the human touch here. A piece of technology that empowered people to do that very procedure themselves. Instead of going through the human being, the telephone operator, they literally punched in that phone number themselves. Piece of technology that was easy to use, piece of technology that was cheap, that was highly accessible. These are the features of any technological revolution. And this happened in the 1960s. Today, there are less than 12,000 telephone operators across North America, across the whole continent, where there used to be in the US alone for one company, just under 500,000. So let's use this model that we have in telecommunications to think about how we can approach this problem very differently. And the first shift in our mentality around this has to be, I cannot see any way around it. It has to be moving from mental health is a 1 in 5 issue to we all have mental health. Mental health is a 5 in 5 issue I have mental health, you have mental health. That next evolution in our thinking about this very issue has to be one that we are all in this together, and is not, let's pick out the 1 in 5 people in the room. Let's think about all of us and how we can train our resilience. And how do we do that? Well, a lot like the automatic telephone system did. It put a tool in somebody's hands. It trained them how to use that tool. You literally dial the number, give them a system, a paradigm, a construct on how to use that tool. Let's give people the tools. Let's think of it that way. And these are tools that are evidence-based. These are tools that need to be totally accessible. They need to be inexpensive, and we need to empower people to use those tools, with the 4 keys of any technological revolution. And given the breadth and depth and intensity of the issue around the echo pandemic, we have no choice but to look at the 4 ways in which we're disrupting this space. Now, I have a story about a tool and how simple tools can be and how powerful tools can be. And it brings me back to the old blue brain and red brain metaphor that we used before, that we're all feeling. And I have a story about a young man named Chris, and Chris has given me permission to share his story. Now, Chris was a very successful individual. He lived in downtown Toronto, and Chris was an individual who had a severe form of obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, this is a condition where you are perpetually living in red brain, perpetually distracted, perpetually thinking about obsessions, perpetually stressed, and feeling that physical strain and stress of it all. Chris, unfortunately, could no longer work. He had to go on short-term disability. He had to go on long-term disability because his OCD, his obsessive thoughts, were absolutely taking over his world. Things got so bad for Chris that he didn't leave his house. He didn't leave his apartment for not 1 month, 6 months, not 1 year, not 2 years. He did not leave his apartment for 6 years. That's how severe this condition was for Chris. He was at the absolute depths of his life. He had, unfortunately, a seizure because of his, he was not keeping up with his nutrition. And that's where I saw him. He had a medical event, extreme medical adversity, and I saw him because that is my specialty. And I met him for the first time. Him leaving his house was through an ambulance, was in the emergency room. Now, Chris was a very courageous individual. He committed to wanting to improve his life, wanting to improve himself. And he decided to meet me in my clinic a week after that. That would be the second time he left his house. The first time he left his house, of course, we just celebrated that. That's amazing, Chris, that you left your house and you got your dad to come pick you up. You came to my clinic. It's an incredible first step for someone who has severe obsessive compulsive disorder. His fear, by the way, he had a deadly fear of leaving the house, that his life would be somehow compromised. He was in that continual red brain state. His life would be compromised if he left the house. In that first meeting, what we did with Chris is talk about tools. We talked about red brain, blue brain. We talked about how to give you a single tool to help you out of this. The tool that we gave him was something called an exposure hierarchy. Okay, so an exposure hierarchy is an age-old psychological tool where you slowly expose yourself to more stressful things, and you learn to cope with that stress through things like breathing. Okay, so we started off and said, if you can come 2 weeks in a row, that's step 1. If you can walk here, the hospital was very close to his home, then that's step 2. The final step was to actually take the train, which for him was, he couldn't believe it. Like, it was full of germs. He was, very afraid of leaving, being around people, but to take the train to actually come and see me. Lo and behold, within 6 months of working with him, giving him this one tool of an exposure hierarchy, his father and he came into the clinic 6 months into our work together. His father instantly started crying. Chris instantly started crying. And of course, I started crying. It was a very emotional moment. It was a very powerful moment. I'll never forget what his dad said to me. He said, Ryan, we've been trying to get Chris to leave the house for the last 6 years. And with this tool, we not only left the house, but they went to the opera together. That was something that his dad had wanted to do with him for so many years. They went to the opera and they sat in a public space and they had a wonderful time together, and they're both grinning ear to ear because of this. This is an example of an evidence-based tool, something simple that absolutely can revolutionize how you think about things. And with some daily practice and commitment, it is important to know that these can have a significant impact, even for those who are on the severe end of being on that red brain state. So why do we do the work we do? Why do I do the work I do? I try and give people tools to get them ahead of adversity and within the workplace. Give people tools that fit within their work schedule. Give people tools that have small and real-time benefits. Give people tools that are personalized to them, not just generic tools. And give people tools that can help them build those technological habits. And again, these are along the lines of what it takes to be something that disrupts technology, something that is accessible, something that is easy to use, fits within their schedule, something that gives you benefit and real-time benefit, something that is empowering people to actually build those habits every single day, a lot like the automatic telephone system did. Today, we're going to talk about one of those tools, and a small tool, but something I think is crucially important, and that is the tool of optimism. We said today that so many of us are trying to be optimistic. Let's build that muscle right now together, because we know that it is very much a skill that is trainable. Everyone can train this muscle. I know it to be true. There's actually a lot of research to back this up, that if you can practice optimism in the way that we're going to walk through together for 1 week, you are at less risk of depression and anxiety 6 months later. Now, how do we know that? There's two young researchers, Martin Seligman and Gregory Buchanan. This, of course, is an old study now, showing that there was a group of people who studied optimism for a week, a group of people that did not study and train optimism for a week. Those people that did, and all they did simply was practice saying 3 good things at the end of each day and providing an attribution to that, we're going to go through that, had less incidence, less cause of depression and anxiety 6 months later. Very elegant, very powerful study to show that there are long-lasting benefits. And optimism, of course, is a tool that gets us out of that red brain. And if we train it correctly, can put us in that blue brain state. So here we go. We're going to take the last couple of minutes here. I want you to get out a pen and paper so we can do a little bit of lonely work together. And I want you to, I'll give you a couple moments just to reflect on that. And then I'd invite you to do the first step here, which is I want you to reflect on 3 good things that happened to you in the last week. Okay, so push out all the bad stuff, push out all the things that you feel are threats, push out all the red brain kind of threats. And I'd invite you to write down 3 things that happened to you in the last week. Okay, and give a couple sentences, 2 or 3 sentences to each one of these things. So for me, an example, you know, we got some really great news at Headversity yesterday. So that was really exciting for us. Working with bigger and bigger organizations, having a deeper impact in individual employee lives. That was an exciting thing that happened for me. Another thing was, yeah, I got up early this morning and had a good workout. That was a great thing that happened. And my wife, who is also in the medical field, got some really good news yesterday as well. Okay, so there's 3 good things that have happened to me. I want you to be specific and I want you to write these down. I invite you to take a couple of moments to do that right now. Okay, now here is the tricky part, the part that we're not very good at, the part that we need a little more practice on, and that is contributing those 3 good things to something. And what I would encourage you to do is to have an internal locus of control on these things. These things didn't just happen because, you know, because they happened. It was just by chance or by luck. They happened because of something you did. So for the second part of this exercise, I want you to write down why those 3 good things happen and put some detail to that. Again, put a couple sentences to each one of these 3 good things. So for me, the first thing, Headversity, we have an excellent team at Headversity. We have an amazing team of people who work very hard every single day to try and grow our impact. Okay, that's why the first good thing happened. Second good thing was that I had a good workout this morning. I had the discipline to get up and think about the benefits of exercising every day. I did that this morning. The third piece of good news and good thing that happened was my wife, who's also a physician, had some great news about a rotation that she did, that she passed it, and it was a very difficult rotation. Why did that happen? In part because in part because I'm there to support her and our family supports her. The largest part is because she works very hard at her practice. Okay, so I'd invite you to take a couple of moments right now to provide a contributant, an attribution to those three good things. That's the crux of the exercise. I'll give you a couple moments to do that right now. Excellent. Thank you for joining me in that exercise. Thank you to this group for joining me and all the work and forethought that you've brought into today's presentation. And I want to wrap up with talking about the wheel again, because this wheel again represents our ability to look at things in a whole new way, where we had previously just thought about cast iron and steel. And now we're looking to use even old materials or old tools like optimism or focus or hardiness or mental fitness, and putting them together in a whole new way that can not just solve a problem, but can create an amazing solution around a problem that we continually face. That problem right now is around mental health. Our solutions that we're using are age old, and we need to use inspiration from our environment around us and put tools in people's hands so that they can solve those problems themselves. With that, I'd like to thank you very much for joining me. I was honored to be a part of the panel today, the panel of discussion, and really excited to see if there's any questions that we have in and around our talk, around optimism, around the future of mental health, and around the very situation that we take ourselves and find ourselves in. So without further ado, thank you, and I'm open to the next couple minutes for any questions that you might have.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ryan Todd. We appreciate everything that you've said. Please feel free to throw some questions into the chat box, and we'll monitor the questions that way. You know, I want to thank you for your honesty. And when you said we weren't ready for this, and I'm glad you kind of talked about the blue brain and the red brain. And then gave us the three options of I am optimistic, I try to be optimistic, and I am not optimistic, because that's one thing that we need to be able to be honest with ourselves. You know, one of the good things in my day, I guess, is that I have blue eyes. So every time I look at myself, I have to see those blue eyes, and I think about confidence, and I think about how do I make myself calm, yet inside I'm as red as can be. So I'm fortunate that I have that blue reminder. So how would you encourage people to look for the blue or to look for that reminder?
It's a great question. And I think it starts with identifying the tools or practices that work best for you, right? We know that there are 6 core resilience skills, everything from mindfulness to hardiness to mental fitness, mental health, energy management, self-expertise. I encourage you to try and find the tool that works best for you. For you personally, it was one of confidence, where you were telling yourself, confidence is all about the story we tell ourselves, and you told yourself a very confident story when you'd look in the mirror and see your blue eyes. when I am feeling stressed or I need a little bit of that help to get out of red brain, my favorite tool is indeed the optimism tool, is to use that tool to try and help myself get from red brain to blue brain by reflecting on 3 good things that happened that day. For some of us, it's thinking clearly. For some of us, it's practicing mindfulness and providing all those tools in an easy, accessible way is something that we're really passionate about at Adversity. And I encourage you to just find your tool that works best for you and practice it every single day if you can.
Wonderful, thank you. And it was, you know, we were a little bit, I don't want to say hesitant on moving forward with this event because we wanted to tackle the mental health, and we want to do it in a very respectful way via Zoom. And so, you know, that was one of my number one good thing is this event, that we were able to go ahead with it. And that is because of the excellent staff that we have at the Chamber, but also our members and our panelists. And I remember when you and myself and Nika did talk when we were trying to figure out what would be the good topic for today. So, you know, thank you for being one of our stakeholders in this event. Adversity is a very important part of today's event. So thank you for bringing, like Doug said, a very realistic approach to mental health in this day and age. So any last words of wisdom?
Finally, I just want to thank you for letting us be a part of this. I know everyone on today's session cares about this very deeply and is searching for solutions. And we are all in this together. So I'd encourage you to, if you have any questions, of course, reach out to me personally on LinkedIn or info@adversity.com. And for us to continue moving this agenda forward and reflecting and thinking about new ways and innovative ways that we can tackle this very real issue together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and everybody's time today. I'm going to bring Nika on because we've been talking about these bags, and I know not everybody was able to get their bag, but I want to show you guys what's in it so we can make sure we get everybody their bag. Dominica, where are you? There we go.
So I want to also thank everybody for being here today. It's been an amazing event. So thank you to all the speakers, everyone that's attending. And yes, for any of you who have not yet picked up your bag, they are available for pickup. Someone will be at the office shortly after this event is over. So feel free to stop by this afternoon or anytime this week. As mentioned, the first 50 people who registered did receive a book from Tony, which we're all very excited about. And the books will be arriving hopefully later this week, and we will be contacting everyone who will get one of those books, and we'll arrange pickup at that time. But for now, I wanted to give you a little showcase of some of the really amazing things that are in this bag, so that will entice you to come pick it up. So obviously Bayshore Home Health is our major sponsor today, and they really did an amazing job of putting together some great things for us. So what Deborah did is she put together a little COVID kit for us. And so it has all the things and essentials you need for living this COVID lifestyle that we're in right now. So there is some amazing wipes that can help you clean off any kind of tables or chairs or anything like that. And then of course there's spray for your hands, sanitizing spray, and of course a Tide pen branded with Bayshore, so not actually Tide, but it does get rid of stains. So sometimes when we're sipping our coffee on these meetings, we spill a little bit and we can fix that. The other really cool thing is this little key holder. And so basically you can pull open doors, push elevator buttons, push pedestrian buttons, anything like that without having to touch them. And of course, this super cool phone sanitizing spray, which is also a glass cleaner. So this is awesome. So thank you again to Bayshore for putting together all these amazing things for us. On top of that, if that wasn't already enough to get you to come in and get the bag, We've got these really great pens from Sandy Lyons at Grant Thornton. And I've been writing with my pen this morning and it writes like a dream. Of course, ToddPlus threw in some awesome stress balls for us. So everybody needs one of those right now, I think. Stage Right, who was on our panel today, threw in these awesome levels that are also a, if I can get it to open, a little measuring tape. So for all your picture hanging needs. And then of course, as we already mentioned, your cookie from Christy Kruger Realty. So these are amazing. I gobbled mine up really quickly. And then of course, some gifts from us at the Chamber, masks, because everybody needs a mask right now. We gave these cute little heart notepads so you can write yourself a love note. And then my personal favorite is these amazing coloring books. So it's been proven that coloring in these types of books can help relieve stress and anxiety and any of those kinds of things that we're all going through. So we wanted to include that in your bag. And then lastly, we wanted to give you all some calm chamomile tea just to help you feel a little bit better after all of this amazing knowledge. So thank you again. If you have any questions, concerns, please feel free to reach out to me or anybody at the team on the team at the Lethbridge Chamber, and hope to see you all in person very soon. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I just want to again thank everybody for attending today, but also thank our sponsor, Bayshore. But, you know, listening to Tony, I hope that you got some good nuggets out of that. And then, of course, Wendy and Gina with Stage Right. I tell you, follow Stage Right and see what they do. It's amazing. So it's not just your home office, but your whole house, and I'm sure you would do a workspace office as well. So thank you for your time and the gift in the bag. And then Charlene had to leave, unfortunately. Then David with Canadian Mental Health, and then Nicole and Rhonda with the Chartered Professionals in Human Resources of Alberta. And Rhonda, thank you again for being one of our committee members. Our members that we have on the call, I think that I saw, we had Rhonda, Ashley Frank, Laura Martin, Sandy Lyons, Chris Broughton, and then Paula Kunan. So thank you guys for helping us with this. It does take a team, and we've got a great team. As Nika said, you know, as actually Dr. Brian Todd said, we weren't ready for this in a lot of ways. And so we're still learning and trying to make sure that we are providing the best experience for our community, but also we are champions for a stronger community. That's in our mission statement. So please reach out and let us know how you felt about today. If all the good things, the bad things, because that's what's going to make us better and stronger and help us work through all of this stuff that we have to work through. So thank you. If there's any questions or any comments, please feel free to throw the comments in, and I appreciate all the comments that we did see. And I'm sorry if my internet is lagging a little bit. I keep getting this broadband message, so hopefully I haven't been too spotty. But thank you all so much.
Thanks, Cindy.
My pleasure. Thank you, Doug. It was great to see your comments.